Today we embark on an epic journey into the mind of one of history's most influential philosophers, economists, and revolutionaries, Karl Marx. A name synonymous with radical change, with the struggle for justice, and with the profound critique of capitalism. Whether you agree with his ideas or not, Marx's thoughts have shaped the modern world in ways we can't ignore. From social struggle and false consciousness to alienation and beyond, today we unravel the complex and compelling theories that Marx left as his legacy. So grab a seat, get comfortable, and prepare for a journey through the tumultuous waters of 19th century Europe, where the seeds of revolutionary thought were sown. Let's begin our exploration with the foundational concept of Marx's philosophy, historical materialism. Historical materialism is the cornerstone of Marxist theory. At its core, it posits that material conditions of a society's mode of production fundamentally determine its organization and development. For Marx, history was not driven by ideas or the actions of great individuals, but by the economic activities and class struggles that define every epoch. Imagine society as a complex organism where the economic base forms the skeleton. This base comprises the means of production, like land, factories, and technology, and the relations of production, which are essentially the relationships between those who own the means of production and those who do not. Above this economic base, we have the superstructure. This includes culture, institutions, politics, and ideologies, essentially the societal elements that we interact with daily. According to Marx, the superstructure is shaped by the base and serves to maintain and legitimize the economic status quo. Understanding the economic base. To grasp the intricacies of historical materialism, we must delve into the components of the economic base. The means of production include everything required to produce goods and services, such as raw materials, machinery, tools, and labor power. The relations of production refer to the social relationships that people enter into as they acquire and use the means of production. In a feudal society, for example, the means of production were primarily land, and the relations of production were between lords who owned the land and serfs who worked it. In a capitalist society, the means of production include factories and technology, and the relations of production are between capitalists who own these means and workers who sell their labor. The superstructure. Moving on to the superstructure, we find all the non-economic aspects of society. This includes law, politics, religion, art, and science. According to Marx, the superstructure both arises from and serves to stabilize the economic base. In other words, the superstructure is shaped by the base and in turn helps to maintain the existing economic relations by justifying and perpetuating the status quo. Historical development. Marx argued that historical development occurs through the conflict between different classes within the economic base. This class conflict drives historical change and leads to the transformation of societies. In feudalism, the conflict was between the nobility and the peasantry. In capitalism, it is between the bourgeoisie, capitalist class, and the proletariat, working class. Thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. This brings us to the dialectical method. Marx borrowed the concept of dialectics from Hegel but applied it to material conditions rather than ideas. In this view, history progresses through the dialectical process of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. A thesis, existing condition, is challenged by its antithesis, opposing force, resulting in a synthesis, new condition, that resolves the conflict in a higher form. For example, feudalism, thesis, was challenged by the rising bourgeoisie, antithesis, resulting in the development of capitalism, synthesis. Marx predicted that capitalism would eventually be challenged by the proletariat, leading to socialism and ultimately communism. Class struggle. Central to Marx's theory is the concept of class struggle. History, he argued, is the history of class struggles. Whether it's the patricians versus plebeians of ancient Rome, feudal lords versus serfs in medieval Europe, or bourgeoisie versus proletariat in modern capitalism, every era is marked by a dominant class exploiting a subordinate one. Marx believed that the dynamics of class struggle were the driving force of historical development. He saw the proletariat struggle against the bourgeoisie as the final and most critical conflict, which would eventually lead to the overthrow of capitalism and the establishment of a classless society. Class in itself and class for itself. Marx distinguished between a class in itself and a class for itself. A class in itself refers to a group of people who share common economic interests and conditions, but are not necessarily aware of these shared interests. A class for itself, on the other hand, is a group that not only shares common interests, but also has a collective consciousness and is actively working towards a common goal. For the proletariat to become a revolutionary force, it must transform from a class in itself to a class for itself. This transformation occurs through the development of class consciousness, where workers become aware of their exploitation and unite in the struggle against the bourgeoisie. The bourgeoisie and proletariat. Marx's analysis of capitalism focuses on the antagonistic relationship between two main classes, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The bourgeoisie is the capitalist class that owns the means of production. They derive their wealth and power from the exploitation of labor. The proletariat is the working class that sells its labor power to the bourgeoisie in exchange for wages. According to Marx, the bourgeoisie benefits from the surplus value created by the labor of the proletariat. This surplus value, which is the difference between the value produced by labor and the wages paid to labor, is the source of capitalist profit. The exploitation of the proletariat by the bourgeoisie is the fundamental contradiction of capitalism. Alienation. One of Marx's most poignant and enduring concepts is that of alienation. In a capitalist society, Marx argued, workers are alienated in several ways. From the product of their labor, workers produce goods that they do not own and often cannot afford. From the process of labor, the work itself becomes monotonous and dehumanizing. From their own humanity, work becomes a means to an end, stripping workers of their creativity and individuality. From other workers, capitalism breeds competition rather than cooperation among workers. Alienation from the product. In capitalist production, workers are alienated from the products they create because these products are owned and sold by the capitalists. The workers have no control over the design and production process or the use of these products. The products become alien objects that confront the workers as something external and hostile. Alienation from the process. The process of labor in capitalism is also alienating. Work is divided into repetitive, mechanical tasks that offer little satisfaction or fulfillment. Workers become mere cogs in the machine, performing tasks that do not engage their full potential. This alienation from the labor process strips work of its intrinsic value and reduces it to a means of survival. Alienation from humanity. Marx believed that human beings are inherently creative and productive. However, under capitalism, work becomes a means to an end rather than an expression of human potential. This alienation from one's own humanity occurs because workers are compelled to sell their labor power to survive, rather than engaging in work that is fulfilling and meaningful. Alienation from others. Finally, workers are alienated from each other. Capitalism fosters competition rather than cooperation. Workers vie for jobs, promotions, and wages, creating an environment of mistrust and hostility. Instead of uniting in their common interests, workers are pitted against each other, further entrenching their alienation. Commodity fetishism. Another critical idea is commodity fetishism. In capitalist societies, social relationships are mediated by commodities. Marx pointed out that commodities are perceived as having value in themselves, independent of the labor that created them. This fetishism obscures the exploitation inherent in capitalism. Understanding commodity fetishism. Commodity fetishism occurs when the social relations involved in production are masked by the relationships between commodities. People come to see commodities as having intrinsic value, rather than recognizing them as products of human labor. This fetishism creates a distorted perception of reality, where commodities appear to have magical properties and value in themselves. The role of money. Money plays a crucial role in commodity fetishism. It becomes the universal equivalent, a commodity that can be exchanged for any other commodity. This abstraction of value further obscures the social relations behind production. People come to see money and commodities as ends in themselves, rather than as representations of human labor. The labor theory of value. Next, we have the labor theory of value. For Marx, the value of a commodity is determined by the socially necessary labor time required to produce it. This theory contrasts sharply with the capitalist notion that value is derived from market dynamics like supply and demand. Socially necessary labor time. The concept of socially necessary labor time is central to Marx's labor theory of value. It refers to the amount of labor time required to produce a commodity under normal conditions of production, with average skill and intensity, and using the prevalent technology. The value of a commodity, according to Marx, is proportional to the amount of socially necessary labor time embodied in it. Use value and exchange value. Marx distinguished between use value and exchange value. Use value refers to the utility or usefulness of a commodity, while exchange value refers to the quantity of other commodities for which a given commodity can be exchanged. In a capitalist market, the exchange value of commodities is determined by the amount of socially necessary labor time required to produce them. Surplus value and exploitation. Building on the labor theory of value, Marx introduced the concept of surplus value. In capitalism, workers are paid less than the value they produce. The difference, surplus value, is appropriated by the capitalist as profit. This is the root of exploitation in Marx's view. Absolute and relative surplus value. Marx identified two main ways in which capitalists extract surplus value: absolute surplus value and relative surplus value. Absolute surplus value is generated by extending the working day, forcing workers to labor for longer hours. Relative surplus value, on the other hand, is generated by increasing productivity through technological innovation and improved methods of production, allowing capitalists to produce more value in the same amount of time. The rate of exploitation. The rate of exploitation, or the rate of surplus value, is the ratio of surplus value to variable capital, wages. It measures the degree to which workers are exploited by capitalists. Marx argued that the drive to increase the rate of exploitation leads to intense competition among capitalists, resulting in a relentless pursuit of profit at the expense of workers' well-being. The role of ideology. Marx also explored the role of ideology in maintaining the status quo. Ideologies are systems of thought that justify the power of the ruling class. They are part of the superstructure and help to perpetuate exploitation by promoting the illusion that the capitalist system is fair and natural. The ideological state apparatus. Marx and later Marxist theorists, such as Louis Althusser, identified various institutions and practices that function as ideological state apparatuses. These include the education system, the media, religion, and the family. These institutions propagate the dominant ideology, shaping individuals' beliefs and behaviors in ways that reinforce the existing power structures. False consciousness. False consciousness is a related concept. It describes the way in which the proletariat is misled to believe in the legitimacy of their exploitation. Rather than recognizing their shared interests, workers often accept and even defend the capitalist system, influenced by the ruling class's ideologies. Overcoming false consciousness. To overcome false consciousness, the proletariat must develop class consciousness. This involves recognizing their exploitation and understanding the true nature of their social conditions. Through education, organization, and collective action, workers can transform their consciousness and unite in the struggle against capitalism. Revolutionary praxis. Marx didn't just analyze the world, he aimed to change it. Revolutionary praxis, the fusion of theory and action, was essential to Marxist thought. He believed that the proletariat, through class consciousness and collective action, could overthrow the capitalist system and establish a classless society. The role of the Revolutionary Party. Marx believed that the proletariat needed a revolutionary party to lead and organize the struggle against capitalism. This party would consist of class-conscious workers and intellectuals committed to the cause of revolution. The party's role would be to educate, mobilize, and guide the proletariat in their revolutionary struggle. The dictatorship of the proletariat. After the revolution, Marx envisioned a transitional phase known as the dictatorship of the proletariat. This period would see the working class hold political power and dismantle the structures of capitalism, paving the way for a classless, stateless society. The transition to communism. The dictatorship of the proletariat is not an end in itself, but a means to achieve communism. During this transitional phase, the working class would implement policies to abolish private property, nationalize the means of production, and redistribute wealth. Over time, the state would wither away and society would evolve into a classless, stateless, communist society. The ultimate goal of Marx's revolutionary theory is communism, a stateless, classless society where the means of production are communally owned. In this ideal society, alienation and exploitation would be eradicated, and individuals would be free to realize their full potential. The abolition of private property. One of the key tenets of communism is the abolition of private property. Marx argued that private property is the root cause of exploitation and inequality. In a communist society, the means of production would be collectively owned and managed by the community, ensuring that the benefits of production are shared equitably. The end of class distinctions. In a communist society, class distinctions would disappear. Without private property and the exploitation of labor, there would be no basis for class divisions. All members of society would have equal access to resources and opportunities, allowing for the full development of human potential. The realization of human freedom. Marx believed that communism would enable the realization of true human freedom. Without the constraints of class society and alienated labor, individuals would be free to pursue their interests and develop their capacities. Communism would create the conditions for a harmonious and cooperative society, where human beings can fully express their creativity and individuality. Marx's influence and legacy. The impact of Marx's ideas has been vast. From inspiring revolutionary movements to influencing academic thought, Marxism has left an indelible mark on the world. Critics and supporters alike continue to debate and develop his theories, ensuring that Marx's work remains a vital part of contemporary discourse. The Russian Revolution. One of the most significant events influenced by Marx's ideas was the Russian Revolution of 1917. Led by the Bolsheviks, the revolution overthrew the Tsarist autocracy and established a socialist state. The Bolsheviks, inspired by Marx's theories, sought to create a classless society and implement socialist policies. Marxism in academia. Marx's ideas have also had a profound impact on academic thought. Marxist theory has influenced a wide range of disciplines, including sociology, political science, economics, history, and cultural studies. Scholars have developed and critiqued Marx's ideas, contributing to the ongoing evolution of Marxist thought. Conclusion. As we conclude this comprehensive journey through Marx's key concepts, it's clear that his work offers a profound critique of capitalism and a compelling vision for an alternative society. Whether one agrees with his solutions or not, Marx's analysis of economic and social structures provides crucial insights into the workings of our world. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the mind of Karl Marx. If you found this exploration thought-provoking, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on the great thinkers who have shaped our world. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving for a better world.